Resourceful Designer, episode 72, Getting New Work from Existing Clients.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing.
And now, your host. His wife turned him down 3 times before agreeing to go on a date with him. Mark DeCote.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you've been able to join me this week as we continue to discuss running our graphic design businesses. Now, I have a great topic to cover this week, and it's to show you that there is a veritable goldmine of work there for you if you just ask for it. And sometimes just asking is the hardest thing to do. So I'm going to show you how. But before I get to that, I just want to share a little bit about what I've been up to this week. Now, I finished 2 websites that I'm quite proud of, as well as a couple of posters that I did for a local shopping center that turned out kind of good. But you know what? I really miss doing logos. I was looking through the work here I've been doing, and I haven't done a good logo in quite a while. Yes, I did that kind of logo for a boat last week, which turned out pretty good. The guy sent me a photo of his boat with it on there, but it wasn't really a true logo because he told me exactly what he wanted. He just needed somebody to draw it out for him, basically. And I did that and he loved it and great, but it's not something I'd put in my portfolio or anything. So yeah, I was looking through my work that I've been up to for the last little while, and it's been a while since I've done a brand new logo. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I get one of those in the next short couple of weeks or so. But I have been seeing a few logos pop up in the Facebook group, and that's always fun to look at. Not to mention that we're having a great time in the group where I'm just Googling random logos and pasting one in the Facebook group and just getting designers to critique it, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. And it's always fun to hear from different designers their take on something, especially just a random logo, what they would have done different, what they think works, what doesn't work. And it's a lot of fun. And if that's something you might be interested in, I don't do it very often, but every once in a while I'll throw just a random logo. As I said, I just grab something, I do a search on Google, grab a logo that catches my eye and throw it in the group to hear what people say. So if that's something that interests you, head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/group and join the Facebook group today. Now, speaking of Facebook groups, this week's, I don't know if I call it resource or tip, maybe tip of the week, comes from a post that I actually saw in a different designer Facebook group. And I thought it was a good thing to share on the podcast. And in that group, somebody asked a question on whether or not you charge a fee to your clients if they pay via either credit card or PayPal. Now, if you accept credit cards or PayPal, you know that they charge you a small fee for the service of accepting credit cards, or in PayPal's case, there's a small fee for using PayPal. And the question was whether that fee that you have to pay if you charge your clients for it. Now, first thing I want to say right off the bat is you are not allowed to charge that fee to your clients. It's actually against the law. If you read the fine print for both PayPal and for all major credit card companies, it specifically states that you are not allowed to charge your client a fee for using those services. Those are a fee that you have to pay for the privilege of being able to accept those methods of payment. So right off the bat, anybody that says, oh yeah, I add this, or I tell clients if they're paying by credit card, they have to add an extra 3%, you are actually breaking the law by doing that. Read the fine print. Or if you're not sure, contact your bank or whoever is managing or whoever you're dealing with to accept credit cards, and they will tell you right off the bat. And the other thing is clients are actually allowed to refuse to pay that part. And there's nothing you can do about it. If you send an invoice to a client and you include, say, an extra 3% because they said they were going to be paying by credit card, the client has the right to say, no, I will not pay that extra fee. I will pay this amount, which is the total of the invoice minus that fee. And you can't argue with them because if they take you to court, you will lose. Don't believe me? I actually had a supplier, someplace that I dealt with, that was going to do exactly that to me. When I went in to pick up my order, they were going to charge me a small fee because I wanted to pay with my Visa card. And I told them that no, they're not allowed to do that. And they said, well, it's our policy. That's the way we do it. We've always done it that way. We have to pay this fee and we don't think it's fair. So if you want to pay by credit card, then you have to pay it. So I, right on the spot there, right at their counter, I picked up my phone. I dialed the number on the back of my Visa card, managed to get through to a live person and asked them right there. I says, are they allowed to do this? And they said no. And they asked me to hand the phone over to them. And I handed the phone over to the manager of this company that I use, one of my suppliers. And they were told that if they continued to do this, they would lose the ability to accept Visa cards. And they didn't necessarily say all credit cards because Visa can't control what other cards do, but they would have blocked them from being able to accept Visa cards because it is against the law. And same thing, PayPal says the same thing. So if you are currently charging your clients an extra fee if they want to pay via PayPal or via credit card, just be advised that you are breaking the law. Now, with that said, there is nothing stopping you from just increasing your price across the board by whatever, 3%, and then offering a discount to anybody who pays cash. That is a workaround. If you say that this is my rate, everybody pays this price, but if you pay by cash, then I will give you a whatever, 3% discount or whatever the cost would be. And that is one way around it. But you are not allowed to actually add a fee onto your invoice. So anyways, I just thought that was an interesting discussion. A lot of people were talking about it in that Facebook group. And I just wanted to point that out because it's something that a lot of designers, especially newer designers who are just starting to accept, they've signed up with their bank or whoever to allow them to collect credit card payments. And they don't know all the fine details of what they are and are not allowed to do. So there you have it. And now, today's topic, getting new design projects from existing clients. You know, one of the most asked questions I've heard over the years is how do I get new design clients? Or just basically, how do I get new clients? And it's a very valid question. But let me turn it around a little bit and ask you, why do you need new clients? I mean, if you're just starting out in business, you're new, maybe you just graduated or you just left your job and you're starting your new business, then yes, you need to attract new clients. However, if you've been in business for a while now, you may be missing a golden opportunity if you're not tapping your existing clients for more work. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be attracting new clients, but think about it. Wouldn't it be much easier for both you and for your client if you were working on projects together, since, you already have a relationship, you already know how to deal with this client, and this client already knows you. It would be so much easier to work on new jobs from them than starting from scratch with a new client. But I know you're probably saying there, well, Mark, if my clients had more work for me, they'd let me know. Well, I'd hate to be the one to break it to you, but that statement is far from true. In fact, your clients may be coming up with all sorts of great design ideas and not thinking about you at all. There are so many jobs and projects that go on in businesses that would be perfect for you to design, but for some reason, your name never comes to mind. Think about that CEO of some big company who thinks, we need a new display for our boardroom. I think I'll ask Bill down in accounting to do it because I hear he's a creative person. Or some president, some company on a phone call saying, sure, I would love to sponsor you. Your cause sounds like a great one. Yes, I will purchase an ad in your brochure. I'll just have my receptionist whip something up and send it to you. Or that great little startup company that's finally got the wheels turning there and says, you know what? I think we should try some Facebook ads to drum up new business. I'll design something in PowerPoint and we can give it a try. These sort of scenarios happen all the time, across all factors of business. And not once does the thought occur to these people to ask for your help, or any designer's help for that matter. And it's not because they don't want to spend the money or they don't have the budget. It's simply a case of them not realizing it's a job for a designer. It would be so much better for them to hire a skilled designer to do it. Now, why is that, you ask? Well, for one thing, it could be because your clients don't actually know the full scope of what it is you can do. I talked about this way back in the very second, I was going to say the very first, but it was the second episode of Resourceful Designer entitled, Do Your Clients Know What You Do? And in that episode, I talked about how when you are hired to design something for a client, sometimes the client thinks that's all you're capable to do. I mean, to you and I, designing a website or maybe designing an ad for Facebook is not really that much different. Designing a business card or designing a flyer is pretty much in the same ballpark, but not necessarily for a client. They don't necessarily see one thing as related to the other. And that's why I did that episode as episode 2. Do your clients know what you do? Because so many times they don't. I once designed a logo for a client and they loved the logo. They thought it was great. And immediately upon approving it, they asked me if I could refer them to somebody who could design a business card for them with that logo. And I was shocked. Like, what do you mean? Why don't you get me to do it? And they didn't realize that, oh, you do business cards as well? I thought you just designed logos. I mean, even my brother-in-law, who I've known since before I was a designer. He was around when I was dating my wife. It's her stepbrother. And he saw me go through college. He saw me graduate. He saw me working at the print shop. He was a client at the print shop and I did work for him there. And then when I started my business, he came and he had me design a new business card for him. But then when he needed a rack card designed for some display stand, he asked me if I knew who would be a good person to design that, not realizing that I can do that as well. And this is somebody that knew me since, as I said, before I was a designer. And if somebody like this can not understand the full scope of what I do, then your clients definitely don't. And trust me, telling a client that you are a general graphic designer isn't enough, because to a client, they don't know when you say, I do everything, exactly what everything is. It's that simple. Now, let me get back to the original question. Why do you need new clients when your existing clients have all this work for you? Well, the answer is, really, you don't need new clients. You need to leverage your existing clients and get all the work you can from them. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and get new clients. New clients are good and essential to keep growing your business. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of work still available to you from your existing clients. In fact, most designers I know have a very small client base. If I look through my client list, everything in my program, I use Billings to do my accounting, and I've used it since the day one when I started. I probably have close to 100 clients there. But out of those, I can say that there's only, say, less than a dozen that I do work for on a regular basis. And that's the truth of just about any designer. Some clients in that list are one-off clients. I design a wedding invitation for them, and that's it. I mean, hopefully they're not going to get married again or something. Maybe they'll ask me to design something if they have a baby or whatever, and maybe some announcement. But chances are you design a wedding invitation for somebody, that's the last time you're going to see them. And there's lots of other clients that were one-offs. This boat logo that I just did, I don't know if I'll ever hear from that guy again. He was happy with the service, but it's not like he's going to go buy a boat every single week or every month or every year. So I don't know if I'll ever hear from him again. But there are a few core clients that are the ones that keep a designer stable. And some designers, that could be 4, 5, 6 clients. Some of them, it's a dozen. Some of them might be 20 clients. But chances are it's a lot smaller than what you originally imagined when you were thinking about starting a business. You thought you would need all these clients, hundreds of clients. But in essence, to have a successful business, you only need a handful of good clients. So to be successful and to keep busy, you need to leverage those existing clients and get more work for them. So how do you do that? Well, it's quite simple, actually. You make sure that you are in their mind. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you thought about your plumber? How about your electrician? Your accountant? What about your lawyer? How about your doctor? Great example. You think about your doctor whenever you have either an appointment or something serious, but why don't you think about them when you have a pain in your neck, or maybe your knee hurts, or you're getting constant headaches? I'm sure that your doctor would be very helpful in those situations, but instead, most people take it upon themselves to either self-diagnose or self-medicate or just hope for the best that the pain goes away. But imagine you had a really great relationship with your doctor. Not just a working relationship that, you get along and you joke around whenever you go visit them, but maybe a personal one where you talk about family and, maybe you see each other a little bit outside of the office. I bet if you had a relationship like that with your doctor, you wouldn't think twice about contacting them for something. You had a sore back, you call them up. Hey, Peter, my back's been killing me here. What do you think? And you get their opinion or you ask for their help. Well, that's how you want your clients to think of you. Not in the terms of being a doctor, but you want to have a great relationship with them. So good that they will think of you when the situation arises. But what do you do if your relationship isn't there yet with the client? Well, the trick is constant contact. Now, I'm not saying stalk the client and bug the heck out of them, but just maintain enough contact so that they don't forget about you. And you have lots of tools at your disposal to do just that. The easiest thing to do is email. Either create some sort of newsletter that you can send out by email to your existing clients, or just reach out to your clients by email. It's a great way to remain in contact. Let them know if you're creating a newsletter, or even if you're just sending a basic email, not a newsletter, but just an email. Let your clients know what you've been up to. Let them know what interesting projects you've been doing for other clients. I mean, I just did a logo to go on a boat. If I send that out to clients, I don't know if any of my other clients have boats, and they might go, that's a great idea. Put my name on my boat. Or I don't like the way it's just in basic letters now. Maybe I should get a logo to put on my boat. Wouldn't that look great? So you never know what your client may find interesting and then ask you to do something similar for them. So just sending out an email, even if it's a generic email that you send out that's not formatted in a newsletter, but just an email saying, I just thought I'd let you know what's been happening, or, I learned, or I started doing websites, or there's this new banner material that came out and I just did these banners for such and such a company and they turned out great. And just let them know, because you never know. Again, client might say, banners. Oh, I didn't know they did banners. Maybe I should contact them because I need a banner for something. Or you just finished a direct mail campaign. A direct mail campaign might work for our business. Maybe it's not something they've even thought about, but you just mentioning it, that you did it for another client, might spark an interest in them, and they'll contact you and go, I want to know more about this direct mail campaign you did for somebody else. How does that work? What can we do? And who knows, drum up more business that way. Now, with emails, you can also go a little bit more personal. And this is a great way to build relationships. Congratulate them on things like anniversaries, events they had, goals they've reached, even vacations. I mentioned before how it's easy on social media whenever, say on LinkedIn, and you get an announcement saying that so-and-so is celebrating an anniversary at such and such a position or whatever. And it's great to congratulate them on the social media platform. But wouldn't it be even better if you sent them an email? You saw one of your clients is announcing that they've been in business for 5 years. Well, instead of just on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever saying congratulations on 5 years in business, send them an email saying, hey, I saw on LinkedIn that you're celebrating your anniversary this week. I just want to say, congratulations. I've had a great time working with you. I loved all the projects we did. I'm glad I could be a part of your growth over the years. And if you have anything else, keep me in mind, or let me know if you have any other projects. Or if you follow them on social media and they announce something, they announce that there's a special goal happening. I mean, if one of your clients announces that they're having an open house, do whatever you can to go to that open house. Them seeing you show up there will go a long way in them going, wow, this person cares about me enough that they came, even though they might not use the services. I've hired them and they're paying it back by coming in and acknowledging our open house. So if one of your clients is having an open house, by all means, go to the open house. But there's other things. If a client, who knows, maybe on Twitter, they tweet out that they just got this new product, or they just implemented some new system or something, send them an email and say, hey, I saw this on Twitter. I saw this post you did on Facebook or whatever. And maybe just say congratulations, or I want to know more, or wow, that's interesting. I'm glad things are working out for you. And that sort of thing. Another great thing to do, and this almost goes into like I said, don't stalk your clients, but if you're following them on social media, sometimes your clients might post some personal things like, wow, I just got back from vacation. I went to Greece and had a great time and such. Well, you know what? Instead of just saying, wow, heard about your vacation or great pictures, You can always send them an email and say, hey, I heard you just got back from Greece. I saw it on Facebook. My wife and I were thinking of planning our holidays, or we're in the process of planning our holidays from next year. And I just want to know what you thought of Greece. You don't have to say, maybe you have no intention of going to Greece. You don't have to say that my wife and I are planning our vacation and we were thinking of going to Greece. You just say, we're planning our vacation for next year and I want to know what you thought of Greece. Well, this creates a better relationship with your client because now you're not talking work. Now you're talking personal things. And the client will think, well, wow, they trust me enough to ask my opinion on what I should do or what they should do or what I thought about this destination they may go. And it will help build that relationship. And once that relationship is formed, that's when the people will start thinking. Your clients will start thinking more about you. And when they come up with these little ideas like a new sign for the boardroom or creating a Facebook ad, if you are in their mind more and more often, they will think of you for these things and contact you. Now, email and, as I said, newsletters. If you do a newsletter, then you can use something like MailChimp that does a free campaign and send out an email to all your clients. And you can format it and put photos and all sorts of stuff. But as I said, just a generic, everyday, run-of-the-mill email works just as well. But what's even better than email is hearing your voice. And what I said earlier about email, if you hear that they had an anniversary or a goal or some event or whatever you want to congratulate them on, you could send them an email. But why not call them up and congratulate them over the phone? You can also see how they're doing. I mean, whether they made an announcement on social media, you read something in the paper, you hear something on the radio, if you call them up, that goes a long way towards building the relationships that I keep talking about. This relationship is what is the foundation of our business and what keeps clients loyal to us. And I mentioned in email how great that is, but a phone call is so much better. You took the time to pick up the phone, dial them, and talk to them. An email you can do in 30 seconds and send it off, but take the time to have a conversation over the phone will go a long way. And just having you there and that presence can create an opportunity for them to give you more work. I had that happen to me just last week. I found out from a good friend of mine. I went out for lunch with a friend of mine, and he mentioned how his daughter was going to be away on the weekend with his wife at a dance competition. Now, I happen to know that his daughter dances at the same dance school that happens to be a client of mine. So on Monday, I called up my client and I says, hey, I heard you had a dance competition this past weekend. How did it go? How'd your school make out in the competition? And she was happy to tell me about all the medals that the students had won and how their dance team took the top prize and all sorts of stuff. She was happy to tell me about it. And then at the end of that conversation, she told me, she says, oh, by the way, Mark, I've got our dance recitals coming up in a month and a half. Would you have time to design tickets for me? That was a job that, you know what? I don't know if I would have gotten if I hadn't called her up. Maybe she would have contacted me. But the way it sounded, it was like a spur of the moment. Hey, I've got Mark on the phone. He's a designer. Why don't I get him to do the tickets? So I got an order. It's not a big order, but it's an order from an existing client that I don't know if I would have gotten. Now, you can do this same stuff. I mentioned email and phone, but you can also do stuff on social media. I mean, when somebody posts a Facebook post or they do something through Twitter or Instagram, by all means, comment on them, reply to them, share them, tag them, whatever you do in whatever social media. If you do this on a regular basis, your clients will notice, hey, Mark's always replying or always sharing my things with his community or tagging them or whatever, liking them. And by doing this, you are putting yourself once again in their mind. And when you're in their mind, when they do come up with a job, they will think of you. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about, and this trumps all of them, whether you're talking to them on social media, sending them emails or phone calls. And if you follow the escalation there, the next logical thing is seeing them in person. And I mean nothing beats a face-to-face meeting to drum up business. There's something about having you right there in front of them, speaking to the client, that really gets their memory going and drums up new work to give you. I can give you 2 examples of how this has happened to me over the years. I've got a client. It's a jewelry store, a local jewelry store. I've been doing business with them for close to 10 years now. And not once has that client ever emailed me or phoned me about a job. I don't know how many jobs. I've done probably dozens and dozens of jobs for them over the years. And every single one of those jobs I got because I walked into that jewelry store. And when I walked in and the owner saw me, he says, "Hey, Mark, how you doing? Long time no see." And we talk a little bit and he says, "Hey, do you have a minute? There's something I want to talk to you about." And I would walk out of there. Not every single time I'd visit, but more often than not, I would walk out of there with a project to do for him. Now, I have a feeling, and I don't know this for sure, I have a feeling that I'm not the only designer he uses. He has other people that does work for him. But every time, or just about every time I walk into his store, I walk out of there with some sort of project to work on. And as I said, he has never emailed me for anything. He has never called me for anything. That's the only way I've gotten work for him. And I've done dozens of jobs for him over the years. Now, another thing is my local Chamber of Commerce. My Chamber of Commerce shares a building with what's called Service Ontario. And I'm not going to get into details there, but Service Ontario would be similar to the Ministry of Transportation in the US, where you go there to get your driver's license and licenses for your car, the sticker that goes on your license plate on the car, and that sort of stuff, amongst a bunch of other things. But that's one of the things there. Well, every year when I go in to the Service Ontario Bureau to renew my driver's license or to get the sticker to go onto my car, the Chamber of Commerce, because you walk through, it's like they share the space. The people from the chamber see me, and more often than not, I end up walking out of there with some sort of job for them to do. Now, the local Chamber of Commerce, I know, don't rely on one designer. What they do is anybody who's a member of the chamber, and I am a member, anybody who's a member, they share the work between. So there's more than one graphic designer who's a member of the chamber. They tend to share work amongst the designers. But just them seeing me there, they usually say, like, "Mark, when you're done over there, can you come over and see me for a minute? And I'll go over and then we'll have a sit down little meeting." And I come out of there with work. Now, again, I don't know if that's work I would have gotten on the phone or by email. Maybe they would have given that work to a different designer. Maybe they have a list and they go down the list and they give this job to designer 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then they go back to the top of the list again. Maybe that's how they work. But the fact that I was there right in front of them had them call me over because they were able to discuss this project face to face. We spent 10, 15, 20 minutes talking about it, giving some ideas, brainstorming some pieces. And then next thing you know, I was walking out of there with a project to do. And that's just 2 examples. But there has been so many others where I would just walk in and say hi. I have 2 separate clients that are in the same office building. I just mentioned the chamber and how they share with Service Ontario, but I have a lawyer and I have a music studio that both are in the same building. They're on the same floor, but of course, different office areas. And I make it a point never to go to one, whether I'm dropping something off or going to a meeting. I never go to one of the clients without at least poking my head in on the other one and saying hi. And there has been many times where just doing that, just knocking on the door or opening up the door and saying, "Hi, how you doing? I was just passing by and I thought I'd say hi and see how things are." And I walk out of there with a project to work on. And again, these are projects that sometimes they'll say, "This is something I was thinking of doing myself or thinking of having my secretary or so-and-so do, but you're here now, so let me get your opinion." And next thing you know, I've got the job. So all this to say that your existing clients have work for you to do, whether you know it or not, and whether they know it or not. I mean, we spend so much time worrying about attracting new clients when there's such a wealth of opportunity with the existing ones. And reaching out to them like this, you're not begging them. You're not asking them if they have work. All you're doing is talking to them, keeping yourself in their minds, letting them know that you're there for them. And when the time arises, they will let you know that they have something. And the worst case scenario is that you end up building a better relationship with them, even if they're not giving you the more work. And building a better relationship with clients is never a bad thing. And that was today's topic. Now, how often do you approach your existing clients for new work? I would love to hear about your strategy and how you leverage your existing clients. Please leave me a comment for this episode by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 72. And now this week's question of the week. And first off, I want to apologize. I found a couple of questions that came back several months ago that somehow got misplaced. So if you did submit a question several months ago and I never answered it, there's a good chance that it's going to come up in the next couple of episodes because, as I said, I found a few of them here and I'm going to answer them as I go every week. But that doesn't mean I don't want your questions. So if you have a question for the podcast, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and submit your question, and I will get to it in a future episode of the podcast. Now, this week's question comes in from Ruel. And Ruel says, I'm starting to offer design services for payment. In the past, I didn't charge. I'm at a point where I utilize stock images from a service called shutterstock.com. Since the service charges for license, how would you go about charging for the design project that uses licensed material like a photograph? Would you pay for the photograph license and include the cost for the overall job? Or would you have the client pay for the photograph license separately and charge for the design job without it? Well, thanks for the question, Ruel. Now, to make it short and sweet, I always pay for the license myself, and I include it in the contract that any images, stock images that are used, I own the license to, so they can use them in whatever I provide them, whether it's a website or a brochure or a display or whatever, but they are not allowed to use those images anywhere else. And that's part of my contract because I retain the license for every image I buy. And the reason I do that is because I get to use those images over and over again. I just had a project. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode how I designed a poster for a shopping mall. Well, the background that I used for that poster happens to be the same image that I got. It was a stock image, and it was the same image I happened to use for a website that I did about 6 months ago for a client. It was just a background pattern, but I thought that was a great pattern to use for this poster. So I own the license to it. I can use it wherever I want. Why not use it? Now, in some cases, depending on the price of the stock image, I would just include it in the price of the job. I don't charge extra. I don't itemize that sort of thing. The only time I've ever done that is whenever we've purchased a very expensive photo. Like I had a client that wanted a very, very specific image, and the image cost them, I think it was close to $600. And in that case, even though I bought the image and it was my license, I specifically told them that I would not use that image anywhere else. So even though I was licensed and I am allowed to use it, I specifically told that client that because of how much they're paying, and in that case, I charged them as a separate item. And I didn't up the cost. I charged them exactly what I paid for the image. It was I forget the exact amount. It was $600 and some odd. And I turned around and I charged them that exact same price. But I did tell them, as I said, that I wouldn't use that image anywhere else. But in most cases, every stock image that I license, I put into a folder on my computer, and I've used images over and over again. Why should I go purchase something? If I need a photo of a woman that's holding a shopping bag, I've got a whole bunch of them because I use them. I was doing weekly ads for a department store, and every week they had something like that. So I have a whole bunch of photos of women holding shopping bags that chances are I would never use again. So if the chance comes up, if there's something I'm doing and all of a sudden, hey, I think a woman with a shopping bag would be good, I'll just grab one of those existing photos that I already have a license for instead of going to buy another one. Now, I've only had one client over the years that I've had them pay for the license for, and that was because the client had actually mentioned it up front that they wanted whatever images we used, it was for a website, and they said that the images we used for the website, they wanted to do other stuff with, and they wanted to have the opportunity to use them other places. And I told them, well, if that's the case, then you would have to buy it because some of the stuff they weren't going to use me for, they were going to use other places. And so they bought them themselves. But that was the only client I've ever done that. I've never had another client ask me for that sort of thing. No, I have had clients come back to me after the fact and say, Mark, use this image on my website. I'd like to use it on a brochure, and I'm getting so-and-so to design the brochure for me. Can I have that image? And I'll say, no, sorry, I own the license for that image. If you want to use it, I will tell you where I got it from, but you'll have to repurchase that image in order to use it for the brochure. And sometimes they'll say, okay, great, Mark, can you send me that link and I'll get the new, I'll purchase it for use. on the brochure that somebody else is doing. Don't know why they're getting somebody else to do it. Maybe it's a case of client didn't know that I did brochures, like I mentioned earlier. Who knows? But that has happened to me before. And there's been other cases where I've mentioned that, I have the image, but I have the license to it and I can't pass that on to you. But here where you can buy the image yourself, and they'll say, oh, well, in that case, why don't you just do the job for me if you already own the license? Can we do that? And I'll say, yeah, as long as I do the job, then there's no problems. So that's something that happens as well. So to long story short, to answer your question, I always purchase the licenses myself, and I retain the rights or the license to that image to use as I see fit for that client or otherwise. Same thing I do with fonts. If I have to buy a font for a client, I purchase the font myself. And then if I need to use that font in another project for another client, once I own the license to the font, I can use it wherever I want. So why not use it for other clients? It becomes part of my library, just like these stock images do. They become part of my library of stuff that I can use. And as for charging the clients, I make sure that whatever I charge a client is enough. Most stock image sites, the photos are fairly cheap. So whether I buy 1 or 2 or 10, it's not going to make that much of a difference. I just make sure that I've built it into my price enough to make sure that I'm not losing anything. But in most cases, that's pretty easy to do. Now, before I go, Ruel, I just want to mention one thing. You mentioned that you're using a service called Shutterstock. Shutterstock has some great images. You've picked a really good one there, but they do happen to be very expensive compared to a lot of other sites. So I did put a blog post together I want to share with you, and you can reach it by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/stock-image-sites. And that's all one word, stock image sites with an S. And that's for a blog post I put together called 21 stock image sites every designer should know about. And Shutterstock is one of them, but there's 20 other sites that you might want to look into. And some of them are free, some of them are paid, some of them are premium, but there are some great sites and great alternatives to Shutterstock. Because as I said, Shutterstock has some great images and has a lot. It has a huge library. I think over 100 or close to 120 million photos. But they are fairly expensive when it comes to stock photos for some of them. Some of them are kind of cheap, but I've always found Shutterstock a little bit expensive. So check out that blog post and see if there's any other sites or anything that you are interested in. So I hope I answered your question, Ruel. And once again, if you would like your question answered on a future episode of the podcast, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback. And that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. Always happy to talk graphic design with you. I'm Mark Decote, wishing you all the best for your graphic design business. And as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.